So I'm Conan Evanik, Mr. Conan Evanik, uh, January 12th from Yorkton, Saskatchewan.
Conan, of course, everyone can see that you are blind or visually impaired. Talk a little bit about your childhood and some of your earliest memories growing up.
Well, I was born at 5.5 months and the doctor said I'd never live, but I'm still here today. And I'm here to help people out in every possible way that I can, which is actually what I do for a living. Some of my earliest childhood memories basically revolve around two interests. The first one being audio, like including but not limited to radio and hi-fi, like my equipment is very high-end. And my second interest was to help people out and give, just like Santa Claus, which leads me to my occupation. I am a universal manifester / teacher.
Now, we'll get to that in just a second, because when I hear universal manifester, I'm not even sure what that necessarily is. But as a young kid, how old were you when you realized that other people could see and you couldn't? When you kind of made that realization that there was a sense that you did not have?
Probably when I was 3 years old, and people were doing different things, and I kind of came to the realization, hey, although I'm a physical being, I'm also living in a different world than these people are, because I'm experiencing things, and when I try to tell them, they say, what are you talking about? For example, if I'm in a place and I'm feeling wonderful, I know that I'm on the high frequency of love. When I'm somewhere else where it's like, oh, get me out of here now, please, this is horrible. Obviously that's a low or dark frequency, and people say, well, what do you mean? What are you talking about? Which sort of leads a little bit into my occupation, but hopefully that answers your question clear enough for the time being.
Tell me a little bit about your family. Any siblings, your parents? Growing up blind must have definitely had its challenges. What was childhood like?
Childhood, for the most part, was, although I had a love for being alive, I had closer relationships with friends than I did with my family per se, because I found that other people could relate to me in much different ways. And so although I had wonderful times with my family, I got the most out of interacting with as many different people as I could, so that I could really get fresh perspectives on things. And I guess that led me up to what I do now, which is constantly meeting new people and helping them to get whatever they want out of their life.
School. Did you go to a regular school, or was it one that was specifically suited for your needs?
I went to a regular school, and I got out of that school as quick as I could, because they did not have what I needed for support in order for me to move forward. So as such, I chose a different path, and which again leads me to what I do now.
Okay, so what was that educational path then that you took?
Basically, for the type of work that I do, you can't get this education in university. You can't get it anywhere. You basically just have to do it. I got it from other masters, and including physical people like Lynn Woodworth. She's one of my favorite teachers, but also people that are no longer here, such as Jesus Christ and other highly evolved masters.
Interesting. Okay, so teenage years. Who are some of the people that you surrounded yourself with, friends or just acquaintances and so on, that were the biggest influence on you?
Well, through pretty much all my teenage years, I worked with Master Celeste White, and she was one of my best friends. We did meet, but most of our communication was done via radio and through her toll-free 800 number. And this, again, leads me up to what I do now. She's much more highly evolved than I am, a much better teacher probably at some things than I am. However, we all have something to offer the world, and that's kind of where I found my passion and what I wanted to do.
So I think you're kind of avoiding a few of my questions, and I'm not sure if you're doing it subconsciously or if there's a reason why you're doing it. But I want to find out a little bit more about what your early life was like. Were you ever angry that you didn't have sight, or what was it like coming to terms with your blindness?
The best way I can answer that is to say that I didn't think at all about it, but what I did think about was, hey, how come other people seem different than me? Like, I didn't think I was different from them. I thought they were different from me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so...
By the way, that still happens in adulthood, and sometimes it's a bit of a sore spot, but, it does help to get it out.
Right. Okay, so...
Actually, that's one of my biggest nightmares. Anyway, but it's good to talk about it.
All right. Well, you talk about nightmares. Let's talk a little bit more about blindness, and then we'll reach out into what you're doing right now. What are dreams like for somebody who is blind? For people that can see, they can visualize a dream, whether it's driving a car or flying through the air. I mean, there's so many different weird types of dreams, but for us, we visualize a dream. What is a dream like for you?
Well, I visualize it too. The only difference is that I visualize all the senses except for sight. So for example, taste, smell, feel. So really, I do the same thing. It's just that the senses that I'm using are not the same as what you're using. Although some of them may be, because you may also use all of those other senses as well, but of course your primary one seems to be sight.
Right. Would you say your primary sense would be your sense of feel, or are they all equally as important to you?
I would say my primary sense would be feel and hearing, but I would say that they're all equally important and all have equal validity in what I do.
Okay. Now, let's move on a little bit to what you're doing now. Okay. In terms of your career, how did you describe it again? What did you say?
What do I do?
Yes.
I'm a universal manifester / teacher.
Now, that sounds confusing. What exactly is a universal manifester?
Well, we all manifest whether we're conscious of it or not. Of course, I'm totally conscious of it because that's my primary sense. So what I do is I help you. Like, let's say you came to me and you said, all my life I've wanted to do such and such. I've wanted to have a mansion, or I've wanted to go here, or I've wanted to do this, or it's just been my burning passion, but I don't know how to get there. I come in and I say, okay, well, let's program that event to happen for you, and let's do it. Most of the time when I work with somebody, they can see results quite quickly. In fact, normally when I do a session with somebody, they've experienced instant results that prove to themselves beyond the shadow of a doubt, wow, I've got abilities I didn't know I had. Wow. Well, quite a few, but I'd say the best experience I ever had was probably in Toronto in '97 when I went out there for the summer and did a whole bunch of stuff, and it was just such a high frequency, high vibration that I always want to be there.
What is it? Just the energy of a large city that just really strikes you, and it's almost palpable. You can feel it.
It was wonderful, yeah. Not so much the large city, but the wonderful positivity of the people in that environment. For example, when you go somewhere and you just feel right at home and everybody loves you, nobody turns you away, they just really treat you like one of their own. Well, that was the experience that I had.
And your life has not always been like that? Sometimes you haven't been treated
Absolutely
properly?
not. No. In fact, many times I end up on the wrong frequency and I have to retune my dial and go, oops, this is not where I want to be. I need to go higher. Lots of times I get mistreated and treated as subhuman, even in my adulthood. Of course, being a grown-up, I can deal with things much easier than I could as a child, because when we're a child, sometimes we feel trapped. It's like, hey, oh, grown-ups rule, I guess I can't speak my mind, or if I do, if I do it the wrong way, no matter what I do, I'm gonna get SHIT, whatever, right? So that's a tough position to be in.
What did you do in Toronto that just made that such a memorable experience?
My favorite experience was Canada's Wonderland. The environment and going on all the wild rides. I love wild rides and water slides and things like that. And I got to do all that stuff. Niagara Falls was wonderful too, but it didn't compare to the vibration or the experience of Canada's Wonderland. I loved it.
I would imagine that for someone that doesn't have their sight, going on a roller coaster must be even more terrifying. I mean, visually you'd be able to see where the turns and drops were coming up, but if you have no way to expect it, that's got to be terrifying.
Then how could you be afraid? Because you don't know what you're even in. I mean, to me, it's actually a gift because I can't see what's coming up. It's like, hey, it's an adventure. Let's rock and roll. So it's actually the opposite of that for me.
Okay, so that day aside, what's been the most memorable day of your life, do you think? Is there any days of your life that really just stand out as just ones that, if you could replay that day over and over again, you would love to? What day might that have been?
My goodness. Well, I've had several, including the day I met Gordon Lightfoot. By the way, him and I still keep in touch. But anyway, it's interesting because I met him at a concert in Edmonton, and I would just relive that quite a bit. I wish I would have taken more time on that day to ask him some more questions about audio. Of course, I did later in life when we talk on the phone and stuff. I can ask him about it. But gee, that was fun.
So, Conan, for us with sight, when we go on vacations, when we have memorable days, we capture it all with cameras on our phones. How do you capture memories?
Actually, that's a great question, and I do it in a couple of different ways. First of all, I always had a tape recorder with me on most of my vacations, and the ones that I didn't, I just captured them in my brain, and I can go back and rewind or fast forward or that way if I didn't have a physical tape recorder. Some of my experiences also could not be recorded physically. For example, like when I astral project and do stuff like that, obviously you can't use a tape recorder or a physical recording device to record that. Not yet. Maybe soon you'll be able to do that, but not yet. So that's where I have to use my computer-like memory to capture those things.
So when you do record it with the device, do you actually go back and listen to that later?
Absolutely. And I record things that are most important to me. For example, most of my recordings that I have of other cities are, some of them are being in different environments, but a lot of them are what was playing on the radio, because again, audio is my world, so I have a lot of recordings of old broadcasts and where I physically was at that time, because that's more meaningful to me, say, than a whole bunch of stuff that I can't understand. Like, even if somebody describes scenery to me, I still don't get it. Me personally, it's not meaningful to me. It's just, I kind of live in a different world, if you will.
What kind of questions does someone who's blind, what do you not understand about sight? I mean, we've got completely different worlds, but has there been anything about having sight that just confuses you?
Yeah, and actually it bothers me. Why is sight your primary sense? Why have you not learned to develop all the stuff that I've developed?
Probably
if you did, you could be Superman, man. Why didn't you do it?
Probably because sight makes things easy, and people automatically choose the easy way.
Well, I get that. I mean, why take the steps if you can take the elevator? But what I mean is, why not be adventurous? Very few people that I meet are adventurous enough to do a lot of the stuff I've done. And even some of the physical things I've done. You know, like, they're like, wow, I would never do that. And I can see it's like, well, why not? What does seeing have to do with it? Why don't you open your mind and try something new? For example, when I tell people I'm going on wild rides, they're petrified. Well, geez, I can see and I wouldn't do it. Well, maybe that's your problem. You're too locked into your sight to open up to all the other stuff that's available to you.
Right. And maybe sight is something that is holding us back. I mean, for example, the fear of heights. A lot of people are afraid to experience any kind of thing like that because they're just absolutely scared.
And I'd love to go skydiving or do
fear
something
of heights
like that.
is something that you probably have no comprehension of, I would think, maybe, right?
You're bang on that one, and like I said, I would love to jump out of an airplane. Why not?
Well, maybe someday.
Maybe. I mean, I know there are places where you can go. I mean, heck, even at the ferry, you can bungee jump or do whatever. I've never been adventurous enough to try it yet, but that's not to say that I wouldn't. You know, if the right day and the right opportunity hit, I probably would. I have no idea because it's never happened to me. That would be like asking me, you know, I'm having this problem with my tires. What do I do? I don't know. You need to talk to somebody who knows about tires. When it comes to what you asked me, I've never had the experience, so I cannot tell you. I don't want to mislead you and make something up. I'd rather be 100% honest with you.
Okay, what about attraction though? Certainly there's been females that you felt attracted to. I mean, for us, we are attracted to them most likely visually, and then we get to know them a little bit. How about you? How does that even progress?
I feel I've answered that question. It has not happened to me. I do not know.
Perhaps the sound of their voice, the way they talk, different things like that, I would imagine probably would be the first step.
More than likely, and then I suppose the next step, if I had to guess, would be if there was lots of stuff in common, it would help. It wouldn't necessarily have to be that way, but I mean, it would help. I suppose another step could be the energy that I got from the other person, like how did they feel about me, right? And I mean, sometimes that is still a challenge to this day because I'm not always aware of what that is, so I have to ask questions like, oh, is it this way or is that just in my head?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
As in much of my life, that's the way it is because there's lots of times I don't know something. For example, yesterday I was in a situation and I said to my friend beside me, hey, I feel like such and such, is that right? They were like, yeah, you're absolutely right. Oh, good, okay.
Okay, let's talk about what you're doing these days today. You're helping people. You referred to yourself, and correct me, I forget exactly what you said, a celestial being, a celestial something?
No, a universal teacher, manifester/teacher.
Right. Okay, so your day-to-day life then, how do people approach you for help? Do you connect with them online, or what is your? Talk a little bit more about that.
Well, some of them have connected with me online. Most of them actually are just referrals from people that have worked with me in the past. So usually they just phone me and say, hey, can I get help with such and such? And it's really unique how I do things, actually. Again, when I say I live in a different world, I mean I live in a different world, and I'm going to prove that to you right here, right now. Most people, when they do something, they have either a website or a storefront or a business. I, on the other hand, do not. I operate in a different way, and that is so like if somebody said to me, well, hey, I want to learn how to manifest whatever in my life, how much will it cost me? Well, I don't charge a fee per se. I operate on a different system. The system that I operate on is if you feel you've gotten what you needed to from me, and if you feel that you want to give me a gift, like a financial gift, that's your call. If you don't, if what I gave you did nothing and you didn't receive anything, then I don't deserve your money. So I don't operate in the same worldly system. I don't have to, because I have everything I need.
Technology. You're very in tune with how technology can help you in your day-to-day life and so on. What are some of the technological devices that you use that are incredibly helpful?
The main one would be my iPhone. I also have a laptop. However, I'm slowly pretty much I use my iPhone for everything, because even with the camera, that phone can be my eyes as well, which is kind of a neat thing. It can tell me what's around me. It can tell me where I am. The iWatch is also a good device for that, and so those are the two main ones that I use. Like I said, I also have a laptop which I back up all my stuff on. In the case of if something happened with the cloud, at least I still have a physical backup as well. So.
If there's somebody watching this that is incredibly technically able and has that knowledge about them, is there any type of technology that you would suggest could be improved, and how?
Well, that leads to the other thing that I do for a living, and that is I help developers make their technology more accessible, not just for people that can't see, but user-friendly. See, accessibility doesn't just mean disabilities. It also means I want everyone to be able to use whatever it is, right? And that was actually Steve Jobs' vision with Apple when he was alive. He wanted everyone to be able to use his devices. Hence why the accessibility features for disabilities are there. So what I do, for example, right now I'm working with Environment Canada on their app to help them see what I see, so that not only can they make it fully accessible for somebody that can't see, but also make it more user-friendly and kind of clean it up for the rest of the world as well. Because what oftentimes developers and other people maybe don't realize is that when an app is accessible and when it's user-friendly, it actually, like, making it accessible helps everyone, because you're also making it more user-friendly at the same time.
What scares you? Has there ever been a situation because of your blindness or other reasons where you felt completely disoriented and scared? Or is fear something that you've just learned to put out of your life totally?
For 99% of the time, I want to stay off of that frequency because it's very dark. Mm-hmm. However, like every human being, we all have things that freak us out. And a couple of mine would be, to this day, now I know you're going to laugh when you hear this, but that's okay. To this day, I am horrified of bugs buzzing in my ear. I'm talking about, flies, mosquitoes, right? That kind of thing. Oh, like if you, even now, if you came up and approached me with a weird sound, I'd probably freak out. It'd be like, ugh, go away. Yeah, I know, that's funny, but it's true.
Yeah.
I'm also a little bit frightened of worldly authority figures. Some of them tend to not be very nice. You know, people that we would see as authority, like governments, or but of course they're not all like that. But I myself have had some tough experiences dealing with them. It's like they seem to think they're more of a human being than I am, which isn't really true, but that's an awful fear or an awful feeling to have, if you will, which is also on the fear frequency. Well, my vision for the future and where I think we're headed is that if we keep going in the same direction that many of us are going now, that wouldn't be very good. It's very dark. However, there are people like myself that come into the world that are able to help uplift the world's vibration by helping uplift my own. So because we're all connected and there's no separation, when I experience wonderful things, I'm actually helping everyone in a way to experience wonderful things by lifting the universal vibration of the world. Now, of course, I'm only one person, but just imagine if a bunch of us do that and we all start feeling great and everybody's feeling great, and it just, it goes out and, evolution, if you will, happens that way, I feel. So I feel that there is much hope for the world if we evolve in the right way. I mean, if you look at it, right now, things are a mess. There's countries that are torn up. There's awful things going on. But yet, through all of that, there is an opportunity to change. There's an opportunity to grow. There's an opportunity to evolve. And that's where I think we need to put our focus, is on the wonderful things that we can do to evolve.
Do you think that because we have sight, it distracts us from the vibrations that you talk about? You talk about feeling different vibrations, and quite honestly, I'm not even sure what you're talking about. Is that because we're just too distracted and you're more in tune?
I think that it can be, yes. I think that you're unaware of what I'm talking about, perhaps because no one's explained it to you. Like if I sat down with you and I explained it to you, by the end of my teaching and my explanation, you would go, wow, that's a whole different perspective on life. Right now, you're kind of confused because you're trying to step into my world, and my world is somewhat different from yours, but not totally. It's just, it seems alien because it's unfamiliar to you. That's why. Just like if, when you try to describe something to me that maybe I don't know, like let's say colors, I would have no idea. The only thing I could think about is maybe the energy of that color, but even that would be kind of hard because I don't know what it is. So that would be kind of alien to me. Hopefully that's a translation that you can sort of understand.
I would like to get your perspective on colors then, seeing as you bring it up. If I'll say a color and you tell me what kind of vibe you think you might get from it. For example, yellow.
Yellow as a banana, like that's the first association that comes into my mind, okay, because I know that they are. But in terms of that's all I have. So I don't really have a feeling attached to it, except I do have a smell and maybe the texture of the banana. Or if you said something like orange, well, I could think of a pumpkin, but I could also think of an orange. Sure. Or I could think of. But those are the perspectives that I have.
Black.
Well, that one's a little different because apparently I see black. Apparently black is like nothing. So apparently that's what I see. Or black as in black clouds, the smell of the big black clouds before the rain falls.
White.
White as snow, or white as in white cake that I just took a bite of and it tastes like vanilla.
Now, would you say that white and black are opposites?
Absolutely, 100%.
How is that possible with your perspective?
Well, if you think of if you think of black as being dark, and if you think of white as being the opposite of dark, or light instead of white, then that's how I would perceive that. Again, I'm speaking in terms of frequency, though, not in terms of color.
Gotcha. Conan, tell me this. You sound like you are a spiritual person, and you've kind of structured your belief system in that way. Do you feel that when you get to heaven, your sight will be restored?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. I mean, Jesus Christ told me that already. I mean, I could probably get it here if I really wanted to. However, I'm busy doing a bunch of other things that, that's why I haven't done that yet. But absolutely. I mean, when this body is finished, of course we get glorified bodies when we go up to heaven. I mean, the scriptures talk about that. It's listed in pretty much every belief system you can find. And so that's very important.
Okay, final question. How big of a role does faith play in who you are?
Faith plays an undeniable role in who we all are, because that's what we experience is 100% based on that.
How so? I mean, you can see things and you can feel things, but faith requires just a level of belief so far above that. Some people just aren't capable of that.
We're all capable of it, and we all do it, whether we realize we're doing it or not. That's why some people most people don't know what they did to get the wonderful life that they have. If you talk to somebody that has a wonderful life, well, what did you do to get there? I have no idea. Most of them couldn't tell you, but they did do something, and this is what I teach. But regardless of that, the same thing is true of people that have awful lives, that can't seem to get out of that cycle. They are doing something that's keeping them in that cycle, and so that is how faith works, in a nutshell, of course.
Conan, this is 2019, and there's a good chance that somebody might be viewing this many, many years from now, after you and I are both gone. What would you want them to know about you, in conclusion?
On what level?
On any level. What would you like people to know about you, and what advice might you have for just someone watching this many, many years from now?
Well, first of all, I would say thank you for being in my universe and being connected to me, because we're all interconnected anyway, and my unconditional love goes out to you. And also, I would say that, that's mainly what I would say. Mm-hmm. That's the type of being I am. I would just, I might not be able to solve all of your problems for you, but I certainly would do anything I could for you, and I'm honored that we are all connected and you are connected to me through this video.
Favorite scripture verse?
Ask anything in my name before the Father, and I shall do it. It shall be granted.
Conan, thank you.